bolster state election systems against the continued threats of cyber attacks in 2018. All 67 counties got funding, but as our Samantha-Jo uncovered in her investigation, many local supervisors of elections were forced to forfeit thousands of dollars. She is joining us live now at 5:03 with those details. Samantha, what happened?
Well, Veronica, local supervisors of elections tell me that strict guidelines and tight deadlines prevented them from spending more than $1 million in election security funds.
Election security. Florida now ground zero in preventing election hacking and Russian interference.
This is the backbone of our democracy.
The Mueller report revealing Russia successfully hacked election systems in 2 Florida counties in 2016.
The bad guys have to be right one time. We have to be right every time.
And the feds are trying to get it right, dishing out $380 million in election security grants. But a red flag after digging. We're learning many states and nearly all Florida counties are not spending the cash, leaving millions on the table.
That was disappointing and frustrating.
Pasco County Supervisor of Elections Brian Corley is one of 58 supervisors in Florida, forced to return a combined $1.4 million to the state's federal trust fund. And public records reveal the majority of Florida's 67 counties couldn't spend the cash fast enough. Over 25% of Volusia County's funds, $95,000, went back to the state. Jefferson County returning 38%, more than $22,000, $71,000 from Martin County, 47% of their share, but the most by far, more than $138,000, intended to be spent by Manatee County went back into the state's coffers. That's 53% of the federal funds provided to them. Just 9 counties completely spent all of their available cash.
It's not a matter of, well, we returned it, therefore it's not needed.
Pasco County returned nearly $80,000, but Corley says that wasn't his choice.
We returned it because of an arbitrary rule set forth by an administration and a Secretary of State.
And he's not alone. Election officials in more than half of the 67 counties told us the same thing.
It really, truly was a challenge for a lot of counties to spend the money.
The challenge is Florida supervisors had just weeks to tell the state in writing how they plan to spend the cash.
We had until, I believe it was mid-July. The funds weren't even distributed to us until, I believe it was early August. And you can imagine the worst possible time in the middle of preparing for a primary.
We had a major hurricane, and then we had, all the prep for the major election.
Add in self-imposed rules. Florida required the counties to spend all of the money in 2018. They couldn't move the funds around, and they couldn't use it to pay for previous expenses.
If you estimated something to be a certain cost and it came in lower, you were not able to tap into those funds.
That was, again, one of the problems.
Okaloosa County Supervisor Paul Lux says the state's restrictions prevented him from using the funds for ongoing critical needs.
You could sign up for a company to come in and do spearfishing training, and that's great. But then what do you do next year when you don't have the money?
Election officials told us it all seemed like a rushed job, especially because states had until 2023 to use the money.
For the life of me, I've never been given an answer as to why. No one could tell me why that was.
Senator Rick Scott, governor at the time, insists he had nothing to do with how the state implemented the federal grant.
That was done through the Secretary of State's office. They made those decisions.
Now, the Florida Department of State tells us that $1.4 million in returned funds from the counties will be put in a $2.8 million pot that will be used on cybersecurity ahead of the 2020 election. Now, the department has not yet determined how it will disperse the funds, but the state of Florida has used 85% of that federal grant. We're live on Capitol Hill this evening. Samantha-Jo, Spectrum, Bay News 9.
SJ, thank you.